I learned mostly about the qualitative software Max QDA itself. I had a little exposure to it before, but seeing all of the different features and really sort of seeing how it works when you're working with data for hours at a time and some of the efficiencies that it can provide.
Say you want to learn how to play drums. So you'll sit down and maybe sit down with an hour with an instructor and you get a few basic things, and then you go off for 2 years and you fiddle around, and at the end of 2 years you become a pretty good drummer, but you've picked up bad habits. Maybe you hold the sticks wrong, but at the end of it you're a pretty good drummer, yet you have some bad technique. And I think to a certain degree, that's why I learned qualitative methods, is that, I was set in the right direction, I think, and got the basics down, did some good work, yet along the way I picked up some bad habits. So probably one of the key things I learned in a general sense was I've identified some of the bad habits, and after 4 days of training, I now recognize that these are things that I need to change to make my technique better.
I think we already do thoughtful qualitative analysis, but having the software not only makes certain things more efficient, I think it also sort of like creates that visual space to be putting even more thought into the analysis itself. Obviously, it depends how the user uses it, right? But I think having that software sort of like sets up the structure for you to do appropriately interesting and useful analysis that you might actually not have done without it.
Then, of course, there's a particular project. We had to come with a data set, and this was kind of a back burner thing that we thought at some point we would get to, but having to work on something in particular, this sort of forced us to kind of get this project rolling, and having 4 days to work on it, I think has, given us some traction, I think. That more likely to get done than it might have if we didn't have this block of time committed to it.
I was, for the most part, working independently, so I wasn't working on a team. And I think some of those bad techniques work fine when you're working independently, but when you have, you're accountable to other team members who are looking at the work, trying to figure out what I've done. Some of the ideas that were shared this week, I think are going to be very helpful as I consider qualitative research in the future and different projects, and working on bigger projects with bigger teams.
I really enjoyed having someone who kind of looks over our shoulder, gives us guidance, can tell us how both to use the software, but also good suggestions about how to think about the project that we're working on and the data, and that's really helpful. And perhaps maybe I don't get enough of that in my own role. I mean, I've been a professor for more than 30 years, and I do that a lot to my students, but I don't get it myself, and I kind of appreciate it. I mean, it's always good to have, to continue to learn and to have some guidance, learn new things, but also have people who can mentor you along.